Hello, this is Robert Amaral, Chief Revenue Officer for SlashNext, and Brian Wink, VP of Solution Engineering at SlashNext, today presenting the open mic session on phishing defense. We appreciate all the Norwest Ventures partners, uh, companies coming to attend today to spend a few moments with us. Very grateful for that time and attention. Today, we'd like you to run through a couple slides on what we do as an organization, and then a short demonstration and such. On top of that, we also, as you notice on the right there of your panel below, there's a Q&A section that you can send questions into us that we can answer at the end of the conversation for you. And we'll try to take as many of those as possible today with the time frame we have. Hoping this will take 30 minutes or less. And we look forward to answering your questions and having you learn more about what we're up to. So who is SlashNext? First, we are a company that's hyper-focused on phishing. And I think we probably all know what phishing is. It's a socially engineered attack in the internet and against IT organizations and other kinds of companies. The bottom line is phishing is on a very, very fast growth path in the industry. And we are focused on solving and defending against that specific problem. SlashNext is invested in by Norwest and Wing Ventures and Alter. Pramod Hawk from Norwest is our investor, and he happened to actually be the first investor at Tivoli, his first deal ever, and I was one of the early starters of Tivoli. The issue today with phishing is it's the root of all evil. 95% of all external threats come from phishing. That's from Gartner Group. So a couple of interesting factoids on that. 95% come from phishing attacks, but as well, 40% of your employees have actually initiated and clicked on a phishing attack in the last 30 days. And 80% of all threats and all attacks are getting through your current generation of defenses. And today, what's happened is going from a 1.0 to 2.0 type of an approach. The current solutions just aren't working. The types of phishing attacks today are URL phishing, smishing, vishing, spear phishing, BEC attacks, angler phishing, and farming across multiple types of payloads. It used to be credential stealing, but today it's much more than that. Socially engineered scareware, rogue software payloads, communication callback payloads that do nothing but bad things to organizations. Across multiple communications channels as well. That would be email, web, SMS, collaboration, gaming, social. So today, only 15% of attacks are coming across email. 85% of those attacks are coming across the other communications channels. So SlashNext covers all of those communications channels and all of those different payload types and phishing attack types. To the right, what you see is the types of things that can occur: ransomware, wire fraud. You get bad compromised reputation when you get breached and such. So nothing comes good from phishing, but phishing is the 405 freeway for delivering bad things to your organization. And I want to stress this once again. It's getting through current defenses. 1.0 solutions, SEGs, proof points, the Mimecast, endpoint protection products that are mostly focused on malware, not on phishing, firewall blocks, proxy. They're all static detection. Today's solution requires a dynamic approach that's going to work across that left side, which is going to be the different payloads, different types of phishing and communications channel. That is exactly what SlashNext delivers today: a dynamic, near real-time approach to solving phishing problems. And this is just interesting. 10% of your employees clicked on phishing attacks, and that's after having been trained and used things like KnowBe4 and such. It's a big number, and that's every single month. And if you take the average of 1.5 phishing attacks per employee that they actually initiate and click on, That's almost 13, 14 attacks per year per employee. And it only takes one phishing attack to get through to cause problems for your organization, just one. SlashNext delivers the complete protection for all types of phishing, all types of payloads across all types of channels. And I think the interesting part about this is it not only runs on your PCs and your Macs across all the different kinds of browsers that you support in your organization, but we also support both Apple and Android. So we support the mobile side of the world too. And your mobile side has both, personal and corporate applications running on those cell phones. They're wide open today, and the average person has just a couple passwords probably they're utilizing, and they're wide open for breach. And we think we can solve a huge problem there on the mobile side as well.
Okay, thank you, Robert. So this is Brian Wink. Let me update you on how we do it. So Robert kind of took us through how phishing is different, and really that genesis from those 1.0 attacks, the basic, hey, here's a banking site, try to log in, up to the sophisticated marketing campaigns that criminals are running against us today. As a result, we have to up the game in how we identify those threats. And that's exactly what we've done, and that's what I'll work to give you a brief overview with here. Again, we'd love to have a direct one-on-one conversation with you to explain in detail how it works. But from a high level, our key element of our company is our engine. We call it our SEER engine. This is a cloud-based service. It does run at cloud speed and cloud scale, so it can scale up and down as necessary based on the threats in any given day. And just to be clear, it has three things that it does. And the first thing that it does, it works to get the most amount of inputs coming into itself. Again, even with the best engine in the world, if you don't have the inputs, you're not going to do anything. So we focus on gathering those inputs, and we're going to subscribe to every possible list, cert, spam trap. We've got hardware sensors, we've got crawlers out there, we subscribe to ad networks. We're going to get all that coming in to the top of our engine. We do a little bit of triaging on it, and ultimately what goes into the engine in any given day. Right now we're averaging about 7 million URLs processed per day. It does vary based on the internet, but that's what's coming in currently. And so when I talk about coming in, this is where we really start to differentiate. So other solutions are going to compare the URLs to maybe a safe known list of domains. That's kind of the old school way. You could up that a little bit and look at the contents, the full contents of the URL, looking at certain words in there, if you will. Certain other solutions may actually download the HTML with wget. That's, taking it to that kind of 1.1 approach. We're taking it all the way to 2.0. So in this model, we're actually opening these sites in virtual browsers. Our goal here is to really sandbox the site. That does a couple of things. First of all, it's going to bypass any trickery that the criminals put in place to not allow us to scan. So things like URL shorteners or redirects, the act of opening it in the virtual browser is going to follow those all the way down. We also use a global list, a global set of proxy networks, so we can use international IP addresses, both domestic and commercial IP addresses. And we also attempt to open it in multiple different kinds of browsers. Our goal here is to make sure we're actually seeing the lure page, that threat page. Additionally, at this point in time, we will also we will use our natural language and vision technologies to work through any types of CAPTCHAs that are there so that we can really expose the meat of the threat. And now is when we start to really process it. This is when we really turn that engine loose and the magic really happens. So Robert mentioned that we've got 100+ engineers and about half of them are data scientists. Well, those data scientists and engineers for the last 4+ years have been training our AI and ML engines. And this is very important. A lot of organizations love to throw out AI and ML, but the key here is that it's been trained very specifically. And that takes a lot of time and effort, and we have invested that time and effort to do that. And so we leverage that in a couple of different ways. I like to talk about it in front of the curtain and behind the curtain. So in front of the curtain, our natural language and vision technologies, they're going to do things like look at the web page. They're going to look at the graphics, make sure the resolutions are correct, the alignments are correct. They're going to try to interpret what the graphics are telling them. What type of site is this based on the graphics? Alternatively, the natural language will process the wording on the page. Is the grammar correct? Is the spelling correct? Is the spacing correct? Is the punctuation correct? Do the words seem to tell the same story as the graphics? Does everything match up there in front of the curtain? We're also going to go behind the curtain, and now where we have it opened in the browser, we're going to dump that browser RAM. That's going to allow us to see everything that website tried to get us to do and tried to manipulate the browser into doing. So we're going to look at the DOM, the document object model of the browser. We're going to look at the HTML. We're going to look at the scripts. We're going to watch for any delays. I'm sure you guys have all seen sites where you're at the site and after a few seconds, another thing pops up potentially telling you have a virus and you should call somebody. We're going to wait for all of those things in the browser. We're going to look at where other things like ads are sourced from, what the hrefs do, all of those things. We're going to analyze the gets, puts, and posts. And together, we're going to put that through our engine, and mating with the in front of the curtain and the behind the curtain things, that AI engine will be able to pop out a very specific result. And this is where we're very confident. We call it our threat intel. Our threat intel database, we're confident that it's the richest database on the internet. As a case in point, we've had a measured greater than 99% detection rate with a lower than 1 in 1 million false positive rate. This is very important. Other solutions have low detection rates and false positive rates in whole number, sometimes even double-digit whole number percentages. We're at 1 in 1 million. It's a lot of zeros after that decimal point. Additionally, we're adding at this point in time about 35,000 new phishing attacks daily. As compared to Google Safe Browsing, for example, what we add daily, about in a day and a half, is what they add in a week. So our database is just that much richer, and we very much focus on those zero-day real-time attacks. And I will give you an example of that in a little bit. So first of all, just to recap, that's the engine. So again, the engine generates this threat intel database, that richest database on the internet. Now it's time to talk about what types of vehicles is that engine plugged into. Is it plugged into an SUV, a sports car, or a motorcycle? We'll talk about that on the next slide here. So here we are on the next slide. The engine is that circle in the middle. And what we're doing is we have a couple different ways to expose that engine. And for this session today, we're going to specifically talk about our endpoints. These are our browser endpoints and our mobile endpoints, and I will give you a demo of both. And what those endpoints are doing is they're constantly downloading Delta updates from that engine, from that threat intel portal. This allows all processing to be done on the endpoints. That has at least 2 benefits. Those 2 key benefits are maintaining performance. All processing is done on device. It's measured in milliseconds. And additionally, it maintains privacy and security. Again, since all processing is done on device, I have no need to share anything off device in any way or shape compromising your privacy. Additionally, and what we've just announced, and I'm happy to say it's been rolled out in beta already, and it's exciting to see, is not just that threat intel database is what we're pushing down. We're also pushing down our AI and ML DNA. And this is where it's very critical. We spent that time learning and training those processes, and it's very expensive to do that, but we've crossed that bridge. And what pops out of that for an engine is that critical DNA. Fortunately, that DNA is fairly small. It's very easy to share. And so we are pushing that down to our endpoints to allow them to also process data and analyze data and websites in natural language for the likes of BEC attacks, for example, live on device. Again, processed on device without the need to share anything off device. Additionally, for our enterprise customers, we also have a nice cloud management portal where we can do reporting. We can identify kind of in DVR mode what types of attacks you've been under over the last period of time, and address any other questions that your users might ask, and then help your users out if you have users that are maybe clicking a little bit more often than they should. So with that, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to share my mobile phone. Come on. Excuse me while I wrangle Zoom there a second. I'm going to share my mobile phone, and I'll actually show you what it looks like on a mobile device. While I wait for Zoom. Okay, so we can see my mobile phone here. This is a live mobile phone. You're likely to see alerts and other things coming in. But first of all, you should notice that we do deploy as an app on the mobiles. That is the way everything is deployed on a mobiles. You can see it's the very last app there. And what I'm going to do is show you how that works. So first of all, one of the things that most of our customers ask us about when we're talking is, what about email? What about email? And that's a logical question because most other phishing solutions narrowly focus on email. But as Robert mentioned before, only between 15 and 30% of our communication is via email. What about text messages? What about apps, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? What about them? Slack, we're on Zoom right now. How do we protect them? And this is where it's very important. We're looking at all things. So for the purposes of this demo today, I'm going to look at a text message. Here's text messages from me. And I'm going to look at this last one here and just click on it. What you're going to see is, I'm not allowed to go there. And if I choose, which I am going to choose, I can click on the little pop-up that came up that said, hey, SlashNext, block this page. And the thing I should mention about our engine is, in addition to being very rich, it's also very confident. So when it gives a result, it doesn't give a score. It doesn't say this is a 6 out of a 10 or this is a 3 out of a 10. Because what do you do with that? As a human, I'm forcing the human to make a decision there. And we want to take that decision factor out of it, because what we found is that human firewall is the weakest component to the chain. So we're trying to take that out. So we know this is a threat. Because I know it's a threat, I'm going to protect a user, not let them go there. And if they choose, they can get some more information about it. In this case, this is an example of our block screen. You can clearly see that we're identifying this threat as a type credential stealing. I'm sharing the URL there, and we're also giving a preview of the site. And so what we want to avoid is a bunch of questions coming in from users. Why is this blocked? What is this tool? We want to educate them. Look, this looked like a Microsoft login site, yet the URL is clearly not a Microsoft-owned site. So we're protecting you. If the user wanted to know more, there's a red arrow pointing to the right to the side of the image. If I click on that, this is a feature we get a lot of very positive comments about. We give live education. In this case, we give some extra details about the types of threat, and I also educate the users on what this type of threat was trying to do to them and how it's generated. And so this is live education. It's very pointed. Our users end up having a very emotional attachment to it because I protected them from this real threat just a second ago. And that helps their learning. It helps them retain it because, again, they have that real and true connection to it. So finally, if I go back, if I am a user and I had additional questions, I can actually open a support case directly to my specific admin. It's here from the app. It's at the link at the bottom. It's titled Open a Support Case. I'm not required to open any extra emails or go to any other portal or open a web browser. I simply have to click that link. I can ask any additional questions that I would want to ask. That would go to my admin. I can, in fact, ask the admin to unblock this. That allows additional investigation to be applied to it. We don't recommend that. Again, we're very confident in our engine, but the power is there if you want it. And I will show you what that looks like from the admin portal on the back end. That does, by the way, come in via an email that can go to an individual, an alias, or directly into your ticketing system would be the most common. And finally, from the mobile, we give you the option to see what you've been protected from in the past. Sorry for that pop-up there. And here you can see the types of phishing attacks and the times at which they came in. And just like a DVR, I can go back in time and I can see what are the scams I've been protected from. In this case, here's an example of the scam. Again, I get the picture and I can go back and review the education and the information I was given.
Now,
So I'm going
Brian,
to
can I
stop.
make a point here real quick too? I
Go
mean,
ahead.
what's beautiful about this technology is the fact that your privacy is of our concern too, maximum concern. We talk about privacy, and then two, this is information that your IT organization is not getting today. They have no idea what's going on today with your cell phone. They don't typically own your cell phone. You own your cell phone, so there's that back and forth there that you own the cell phone, but you're running corporate assets on it. Many companies still want to know what's going on that cell phone because you've got access to corporate resources, and we could talk about privacy that as well if you had a moment.
Absolutely. Let me share my actual desktop here. You should see a browser with a Google search page coming up here in a moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you the top of our feed. I'm going to show you an internal tool that allows me to see the last day or two of the feed. These are things that we just detected recently. This will allow me to do two things. A, I'll quickly show you that same behavior on my browser here. I'm going to click on one of these URLs, and I'm going to launch it in a new tab. From an end user standpoint on a desktop, this would be their experience. Again, I get a safe preview. Looks like an AT&T login page. I can learn more, additional details, the training, just like I described before. And finally, I can open a support case. And on the mobiles, on the desktop, we do deploy as a browser extension. That's very important because as a browser extension, I'm able to look at the full contents of the URL and the website when it's not encrypted. If I'm something sitting on the wire, most of what's going by is encrypted, and it makes it very difficult to inspect. And so here, running on the browser, we're able to look at everything. Again, what the URLs that came in through your email, the URLs that might come through via normal web pages, and the URLs that might come in through any other kind of messaging or collaboration app. That browser is the last line of defense. And again, as I described before, we're very proud to say that we're pushing down our AI and ML. So now we're going to be giving a live two-phased approach to blocking, where we'll compare to our threat intel feed. If that doesn't get it, and we are very confident that we'll get it, but if it doesn't, we will live process it. It takes about 30 milliseconds, and the users will have that second level of defense there again. And just like on the mobile, I could go back in time here on the browser as well. But let me take a second to show you something that I find very interesting. We talk about the validity of the feed and the fact that we're very up to date and that engine is very effective. Well, as one of the proof points to show that, my engineers have plumbed in this virus total column here. And if you're not aware of it, and most people are, but just in case, a virus total is a service. It's run by Google. And Google gratefully, or graciously, if you will, subscribes to 85, 86, 87 other feeds. And this link will allow me to compare my feed to those feeds. So for example, you had seen that last thing I clicked on was an AT&T, looked like an AT&T login. Let's just see what Virus Total knows about that. In this case, of all the feeds in Virus Total, they don't know anything about it. Let me see if I can actually find one that they know something about. That's how up to date we are on this feed. We're beating everything. Let me go back a little bit here, maybe a couple hours, see if some of them start to know about some things. Wow. Okay, you can see that we're very up to date with respect to what's going on with Virus Total. Here is the first one. 87 feeds are in play here. None of the 87 feeds feel that this site is a threat of any way, shape, or form. Yet our engine has already detected it. It's already blocking it. It's already restricting it from users. So the point is we're very up to date here. That's very important because URLs and these threats that are out there with these phishing threats, they often only last a half an hour. And if I'm a half an hour behind on my feeds, like you saw, I couldn't even find one that was known by Virus Total. And all these 87 feeds, I'm missing the boat on what I'm detecting, and I'm missing the boat on protecting my end users. And that is our goal here, to protect our end users. Very quickly, let me show one other thing. This is our management portal. Again, we try to make it easy for end users. We try to make it equally easy for administrators. So there isn't constant daily administration required, but we do want to give you that quick look so you can verify, is the system working? Am I under any abnormal attacks today? That's why I love this bar chart here. I can give it a quick look. I can see the types of attacks I'm under. It looks like today is a very light day, so I don't need to really drill down. If I did need to drill down, you can see a list of my high risk users. As you see, I am the highest risk user here at SlashNext. I do a lot of demos. And I could see what are the types of threats I've been under. Let me just look at this one. In fact, it's that last one we used in the demo. And let me take a minute. Robert mentioned privacy. So we don't share anything back in real time. However, if we do block something, we do share details about what we've blocked. And we share 4 key data points. First of all, we share the date and time. We share the URL, we share the type of device, and I share a key, a user key that allows us to uniquely reverse look up that user to a name. In this case, I've chosen to share my name with the portal. And so that key allows our portal to look me up. But my name and email address and any other private information was not shared from the endpoint in any way, shape, or form to the portal to allow for this. Finally, in the portal, I can look at the threats. Again, I can go back in time. You can see each threat. You can look at the users who are susceptible to them. We can also break it down based on endpoint. This is very valuable because if one of the vendors releases a new update, let's assume Chrome releases a new update that maybe criminals are exploiting, we'd be able to see this here. And as an admin, you'd be able to talk to those users and really investigate, hey, let's get your Chrome updated so you're not any longer under that attack. So again, we'd love to show you a more specific demo based on your environment. We can also talk about how we do live assessments to demonstrate not only the efficacy of our solution, but how your existing defenses are going, how our 2.0 approach would benefit you. And that's what we're happy to do when we talk live. So is there any questions today?
Hey, Brian, can you talk about integration there? Could you talk about integration to other platforms real quickly?
Sure. So integration to other platforms, there's a couple things where I get asked around that. One would be how we deploy, and we're fully integrated with all of your favorite UEM or MDM platforms. Deployment can be completely transparent and invisible to end users. And with our most recent upgrade to our installer, in fact, what we're doing is we're watching the actual browsers on your desktop and making sure that we're constantly updated automatically within those browsers to make sure that your protection is constant and always maintained. Was there another integration you were looking for, Robert?
Maybe tying into Palo Alto, tying into Splunk.
Of course. Of course, very good. So the engine, I mentioned that it plugs into many different vehicles, and I've shown you two here, our browser endpoint and our mobile endpoints. However, that engine can also be plugged into other things. So those things could be firewalls, DNS servers, and proxy servers that exist on your network. Anything that can obtain a feed, we can certainly plug into. That definitely has value. We do find that the endpoints have more value because a firewall is only going to protect you when you're going through it. And being with the pandemic these days, a lot of us aren't actually sitting at work going through those corporate resources, but we can definitely share our feed with those devices. Additionally, if you're doing any threat hunting or types of automation, we do have a full real-time API, able to process up to 10,000 requests simultaneously and report back to your favorite automation tools. These would be the likes of Palo Alto, maybe a Cortex XOR. And in fact, at the Palo Alto trade show a couple of weeks ago, out of 500 applicants, we actually won the award for our integration with Cortex XOR and how we automate that for the various processes for enterprises.
Good. Very good. Thank you, Brian. Hey, so, I know we're running out of time here, so I thought I'd do is open it up to questions. I know we've got a couple questions in the Q&A center, so I'll ask you those questions, Brian, and if we can't get to the other questions or if others keep coming in, you can reach out to SlashNext at info@slashnext.com, and we'll be glad to answer your questions or reach back out to you. So first question, Brian, is how do you overcome evasive techniques if the attacker is blocking public infrastructure IP?
Well, again, that's where we're making sure that we're opening the websites with our global proxy network. So there are attackers that do block IP ranges from Amazon or other cloud-based services. And so the benefit of using that global proxy network is we're able to have both enterprise and residential IP ranges that are global, and the solution does attempt to open each page from multiple endpoints to work around that challenge.
Next question is, how is your solution different than URL rewriting?
So URL rewriting, there's vendors out there. This would be a common thing done with a SEG, for example. So first of all, a SEG, a secure email gateway, narrowly focuses on email. We're looking to focus on everything, not just email. But in those solutions, they're simply they're rewriting the URL that forces you, when you click on it, to go to their website or go to their engine where it's had a chance to process it and look at it. So what that does is it changes the URL. It makes it very difficult for the users to actually do diagnosis themselves because it's not the original URL that came in. And secondly, it adds latency and performance challenges when opening the page. And finally, what we see is because those solutions are ultimately only using a 1.0 or 1.1 approach, they're simply missing most of the attacks.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. And so we were going to only handle a couple questions today in the interest of time, but once again, reach out to us at info@slashnext.com. Now, as we start to wrap up here, I just want to let you know that on our side, working with the Norwest, investment community, we are more than happy to schedule a time to talk to you, come in and assess your environment, and figure out how we can show you our technology live in your environment, as well as showing how we can solve your problems with our current solution today from SlashNext. And for our opinion is basically that the current solutions in the marketplace today available, I'd call them the first generation technologies, are not adequate and are not solving the problems that the overall marketplace is driving towards the IT organization's directions today. We think our 2.0 next generation phishing solution is the best technology in the world and the most accurate piece of technology in the world. And we'd love to show you how we can come in and do an assessment in your environment with our solution, show you how we can solve problems. So definitely reach out to us. Anything on your end, Brian, before we wrap up?
No, that's it. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you very much.